Good evening. We'd like to get started. My name is Dave Ebeling. I'm chair of this congregation, and my wife Carol is chair of the children's ministry team, and we're glad you came. I will introduce our speaker in just, is Pastor Edwards here? He has a few words before we start.
Well, really just words of welcome. Glad to have you here with us this evening, and I can snip through that. Glad to have Pastor Schroeder with us as well. So, one of the things that we care about is families, and families are part of what we do here. Right? Our preschool and our child care, our Christian ministries to families and to children, it's important. It's important. And so glad to have you with us this evening. And I'm going to stop talking now, and I'm going to sit down. I've got kids who are sick at home, so my mind's kind of just out there. So I'm willing to learn and ready to learn, and thank you for being with us this evening.
Well, it's my privilege. Dr. Randy Schroeder has been a Lutheran pastor in his career. I first met him when he was on the staff of Concordia Theological Seminary in Fort Wayne, teaching pastors how to be counselors. And as we got to know each other and got to know my wife Carol as a hospice director, she ended up coming to your classes kind of on a regular basis to teach pastors how to handle families who are going through hospice with some member of their family. So
it was a blessing to have Carol come to class, and the future pastors always appreciate her wisdom. Yeah.
So we've gotten to know him a little bit, and when he put out these books, we reached out to him about a year ago, and it was just getting going, and then we reconnected last fall, and he said he'd like to try different ways of exposing people to the ideas. So he's doing one here, you're doing one in Missouri, if I remember correctly?
Yeah, in early March 11th, the Missouri District is having a statewide family life conference, and I'm going to speak on marriage and parenting there. Yeah.
Very good. But for tonight, we're focusing on the parenting part of it, and you have an outline before you, some other things. You'll be very open to questions, and you just take it from here, Pastor.
Well, thank you very much, Dave. And it is my privilege and pleasure to be with you. And I really appreciate Dave and Carol, all their time. I appreciate the children's ministry team, Pastor Edwards, Pastor Beck, all the volunteers for putting this seminar together. And I hope you appreciate just how much all those that I just mentioned want to help you as a parent grow and become more effective as a parent in leading and guiding your kids. And I appreciate, I should say, you taking time from your valuable schedule, because I know a Monday night in the beginning of the week can be busy, to be here and to learn and grow and gain knowledge, as I should say grandparents and parents, because we have some grandparents here, in terms of parenting. Only 10% of people in the United States attend a seminar like this. So what does that mean? That means you are in the top 10% of parents and grandparents in the United States of America. And I'm proud of you. And I know our Heavenly Father is proud of you and smiles down on you for being in the top 10% of parents and wanting to grow. Come on in, ma'am. And there is a handout, Carol. So the outline is there. I want this to be very informal. So I'm going to kind of go through some information and then see if you have any questions about what I talked about. Keep in mind, your children are just like Adam and Eve. God told Adam and Eve, you can eat of any tree in the garden. And I'm sure the fruit on all those trees was delicious. But God told Adam and Eve, you cannot eat of this one tree. You can't eat the fruit on this one tree. Well, what did Adam and Eve do? Well, we all know the answer to that. Well, how often as a parent or a grandparent have you said to your child, you can do this and you can do that, but you can't do A, B, and C? And what does your child do? A, B, and C. So Adam and Eve were disobedient, and at times your child will be disobedient. Colossians 3:20 states, children, obey your parents in everything, for this pleases the Lord. And so the goal of Christian parenting is obedience. You want to seek obedience so that your children become good decision makers. And I think an essential question to ask is, how can I help my child be more obedient? And that's the purpose of tonight's seminar, and that'll be the goal of the 3 Zoom meetings that are going to happen in March, April, and May. Every parent wants to effectively guide their child. Motivation to be a great, effective parent is a great goal, but it's just not always sufficient. Parents need specific words, actions, common sense wisdom, just the basics, so that they can effectively lead and guide their child. And so that's what we're going to look at tonight, and like I said, in the next 3 Zoom meetings. And what we're going to look at, what your handout is there, is the lessons, and I intentionally have 7 chapters in my Christian parenting book, because the number 7 in the Bible stands for completion, perfection. We think about the 7 days of creation. To look at the 7 main aspects of parenting your child or your grandchildren. And I believe it's the Simple Habits for Effective Parenting is the only parenting book that looks at all 7 areas of effectively guiding a child to be a good decision maker. The most famous Bible verse on parenting is train up a child. Proverbs 22, train up a child in the way he should go or she should go. And I would like to substitute the word guide for the word train. I think what is really important is that parents guide their children into adulthood. The unfortunate thing is, when your children, when your grandchildren were born, more your children, there was no parenting manual there. I think the second time around, grandparents have a better idea after having raised kids. But Simple Habits for Effective Parenting is a manual where you don't have to read from page 1 through the book. You can just go to what, if you want, to what is most essential in helping you understand how to effectively guide your child. So chapter 2, if you're struggling building a strong parent-child relationship, you can go to chapter 2, and I describe how to build a strong parent-child relationship. If you're struggling applying the rules meaningfully and lovingly, well, then you can go to chapter 3 and look at how you effectively apply the rules. Come on in. Got a couple more, and I don't know if we have any more handouts.
Yes, we do.
And so tonight, what I hope to do is help you. My number 1 goal is to help you reinforce what you're doing right, and then give you some additional tools to put in your parenting toolbox. My second goal is to help unite you as parents so that you're on the same page. What often complicates parenting, I think, is almost 100% of the time, 100% of the time, 2 parents, mom and dad, are raised with different parenting styles. And then there is a debate on what is the best parenting style. And so my goal tonight, a second goal, is to unite you to be on the same page as mom and dad, because the mother of all learning is repetition. So the more children, grandchildren, hear the same verbiage over and over, and in the same way, the better children will be obedient and learn good decision-making skills. The other final thing I want to mention to you is please have no guilt. Okay? All parents make mistakes. Even though I'm a parenting expert, a marriage expert, I have, and my wife and I made mistakes. You know, parenting is not a game of perfection. And so please don't have any guilt. And like I said, I'm just thankful that you're in the top 10% of parents and grandparents in the United States. And you're here tonight to become even stronger. So let's look at the 13 simple yet very effective habits that are in chapter 1. Number 1, the first simple, successful habit is be a purposeful parent with a plan. Benjamin Franklin said, living without a goal is like shooting without a target. And so I think parents need to have goals for the direction they want to lead their children in growing in their faith in Christ, the direction they want to lead their kids in terms of their attitude. And so successful parenting is just never accidental. Be a purposeful parent with a plan. And I'm going to talk more about that because your goal is to help your child manage their life from the ages of 18 to 100. And sadly, I would say, or unintentionally, most parents believe their goal is to raise their kids until they're 18. And that's somewhat true, but really, you want your children to be responsible, godly adults, to have faith in Christ so they're with you for eternal life in heaven from the ages of 18 to 100. So what's important, how will your children be when they're in their 20s and their 30s and their 40s and their 50s and go right on up? And I think it's important to picture in your mind what internal qualities do you want to see in your child. And then think about and reinforce those qualities. And we're going to talk about the importance of praise and positive labels more next Zoom meeting in March than tonight. But reinforce the positive qualities that you want. Think about Galatians 5, the fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control. Those are terrific traits that you want for your child. And when your child demonstrates those traits, you need to immediately give them a positive label with "I appreciate how patient you are." And reinforce, and there's certainly other traits that you want your child to have. You want your child to have a forgiving spirit. You want your child to be able to apologize when they make a mistake and they get older and they're married, that they can apologize to their spouse. And when they make a mistake as a parent, they can apologize to their kids. But have goals for your child and have a plan. Like Ben Franklin said, let's have goals. Secondly, be a leader, not a boss. And all of you here this evening are leaders because leaders are learners. And when you think of a boss in the business world, what does a boss do? A boss micromanages. A boss controls. A boss has a lot of rules. If you've ever worked for a boss, I hope you haven't, but if you've ever worked for a boss, what do? They give the employee a task, and then they're continually looking over the employee's shoulder. Not giving the employee a chance to just do the job on their own, and that is smothering to have a boss. Children do not respect and listen to a bossy parent. And a lot of times it's because parents don't know better, because again, most parents believe control is the goal of parenting, not seeking obedience and good decision-making skills. What about a leader? A leader in the business world provides opportunities for their employee. They look for growth in their employee. They believe in their employee, that they can give their employee this job, and then they can give them the freedom to do the job. And that's what kids want. Kids want parents who believe in them, who do not micromanage, and then want to see them grow so that they manage their own life from the ages of 18 to 100. Because the goal of parenting is to work yourself out of a job. The goal of a parent is to become obsolete. Now, that doesn't mean you're not going to encourage your adult children one day, or if you have adult children now, but parents need to work themselves out of a job, and a lot of times parents do not think that is a goal. A leader is a gentle authority figure who allows for freedom of choice. And I think the biggest challenge as a parent being a leader is yourself. Grow and work on your Christian walk. The quality of your life will have a great deal to do with the quality of your parenting and a great deal to do with the quality of your child's walk. So work hard on living an ethical life. Work hard at making godly decisions in front of your child so that your child one day will want to follow your lead and then have a godly life as well. And then 3, the simple, successful habit 3 is be an example. That makes the most powerful impact on your child and your grandchildren, is your example. Example is not the best teacher. Example is the only teacher. More things are caught than taught. Your children, your grandchildren are breathing in the family air. They're emotional sponges, okay? So your example is absolutely essential. Never, never, never take your example for granted. What did Ralph Waldo Emerson say? And I'm going to kind of paraphrase. Your actions are speaking so loudly, I can't hear what you're saying. Your actions are speaking so loudly, I can't hear what you're saying. So your example, your words, your behaviors on a daily basis determines the home atmosphere, determines when Christ is the center of the home. And I always say if we want to see how we truly are, that shows up in our homes. It does not show up out in public like we're together tonight. We need our home life and our public life to match up, and that's the example that children and grandchildren need to see. And then number 4, and then I'll stop and see if you have any comments, operate at a higher level in every area of life for what you want for your children. An intelligent person is able to self-evaluate and then self-correct. An intelligent person can figure things out. And so intelligent parents can self-evaluate. And that's why you're in the top 10% of parents and grandparents and you're here tonight. You're evaluating what you can do better, and the other positive is you're going to self-correct. Once we talk about ideas, not just tonight, but in the next 3 Zoom meetings, you're going to self-correct and you're going to keep doing what you're doing and reinforce that, and you're going to do things in a little different way to become even a more effective parent in guiding your child to be a responsible, godly adult one day. One thing I think we all need to do is identify our strengths. Doesn't mean we stop growing in those areas. I need to look in the mirror, identify my strengths, and make those even stronger. But I also need to look at my areas of growth. I hope 5 years from now, I look back on 2023, if I'm not in heaven yet, and say, goodness gracious, I can't believe where I was in 2023 as a Christian man, as a pastor, as a dad, as a grandpa. Now, I'm not going to be embarrassed by my efforts today, but I want to have grown that much in 5 years that when I look back, I'm somewhat embarrassed where I was. And so set a goal to work on your attitude, to work on your qualities, to work on your traits. Now, the other thing I think is important, and it can help you, is to grade yourself in the different qualities that you want in your child. And grade yourself from A- down to D-. Okay? So let's just take Galatians 5, fruit of the Spirit. What grade would you give yourself? What grade would I give myself in love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control? If I give myself a B- grade, let's say in patience, well, what can I do differently? Pray when I get a little hurt or disappointed. What can I do differently to increase my patient grade from B- to B? Okay? Because keep in mind, as a parent and a grandparent, wherever you're at in the quality that you want in your child's life or your grandchild's life, that's probably about as high as they can go. Okay? I can think of a dad, and in fact I have it in my Christian parenting book. He and his wife came to see me because their young son, I can't remember now, 5, 6 years old, but he had anger issues. And the teacher didn't want him at school. Around family members, he was angry. He was angry with his siblings. And I remember mentioning this idea, grade yourself from A minus to D minus. And so I asked Mom and Dad, you know, what grade they would give themselves in terms of anger. And I remember the dad saying, you know, I'm going to give myself a D plus. Well, sadly, where was his son in terms of controlling anger? A D plus. So wherever you're at on the different qualities that you want in your child's life, keep in mind that's probably where your child is going to be. Excuse me, got a little tickle. And I would encourage you on my YouTube channel. I have a Dr. Randy Schroeder YouTube channel. I always have a goal to do a bunch of YouTube's videos every month, and I don't achieve that goal. hope to be better in 2023. But I have a YouTube video on there, about 13 minutes in length, 7 secrets for avoiding anger outbursts. And it is those strategies, those anger strategies probably have helped more than 1,000 people learn to not express their anger in an unhealthy way. Very, very valuable strategies, and I can tell you, those strategies have helped me. You know, if you knew me 40, 50 years ago, you know, I would get upset, and I didn't go into bad anger, but, you know, I would just get a little upset. And those strategies help me be more patient and keep myself in check. Now, do you have any comments? I'm just trying to watch the time here. Do you have any comments on the first 4 simple, successful habits that I mentioned to you so far? Or any questions? That's it, say comments or questions. Yep. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so if you and your spouse, this isn't necessarily about me and my spouse, if you don't align with approaching parenting in the same way, as far as even if they wouldn't want to go through like grading themselves on the fruit of the spirit things, any tips on how to?
That's where I believe the simple habits for effective parenting will put parents on the same page. Plus, I have been on 6 national interviews with Focus on the Family, 3 on marriage, 3 on parenting. The one in parenting one in 2021 was the best of 2021 series. The marriage interview I did in January of 2022 was the best marriage part of the 2022 series. But I would encourage you to, and I think maybe I sent those, Dave and Carol, to you guys, but to check out those videos. I was going to say this at the end of the seminar tonight, but I'll go ahead and mention this. I just got this text last week from a wife, and I thought it was a terrific idea. It kind of answers your question, being on the same page. This is what this wife said. She says, your 2 books and videos have been a wonderful resource for us. In fact, she put wonderful in all caps. We schedule Sunday evenings to watch a parenting or marriage video together so that we can start the week on a good note. I finally feel like we are parenting as a team, and our marriage is back on solid ground and much happier. So that also, in answer to your question, ma'am, would be, I think once you go through the book, and I've had a lot of couples, both with the Simple Habits for Marital Happiness and the parents with the Simple Habits for Effective Parenting, they will also just take one simple habit every Sunday and talk about it. Sometimes they'll do 2 a week. This couple was looking at the parenting and marriage videos. I think they were going back and forth. And so that way it's not, and what, you know, I've probably done more than 60,000 hours of counseling over the years. And I used to have a private practice even when I taught pastors at the seminary how to do counseling. But it just amazes me how being on the same page as mom and dad strengthens a marriage, and being on the same page as mom and dad makes a huge difference in the qualities that a child learns and possesses. So, I would encourage that. Yeah, Dave?
For a
Yes, sir.
single parent, how does that vary in terms of getting in line with yourself, or however that?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I've had, parents who are divorced come in together and read through the Christian Parenting Together. And before my Christian parenting book was written, I had a one-page parenting sheet back in front that I would go through with mom and dad to put them on the same page, so that when the kids are at dad's house, the parenting is this way. When the kids are at mom's house, it's the exact same way.
And when
Yeah.
there's no dad in the picture?
When there's no dad in the picture, then, you don't have that conflict that you're asking about on which parenting style should we use. But, a mom can, or a dad, single mom, single dad, just apply these simple, specific words, actions, and common sense knowledge from Simple Habits for Effective Parenting to, again, influence a child's heart to be a good decision maker. That's the goal, obedience. God could have controlled Adam and Eve, but he didn't. God wanted obedience. So, did that answer your question then? All right, that's a good comment, Dave. Good. Anybody else have a comment or a question on what we've talked about so far?
Can you repeat your comment about guilt?
Yes. I can tell you, I look back and think, goodness gracious, I wish I'd have said this differently or done that differently. Yeah, and there's no perfect parent. Well, there's no perfect child, And actually, the other thing is, you want your children to be, I apologize. I counseled from 1 to 4 and then came here. I'm getting my voice there. But you want your kids to make mistakes. And a lot of parents think, oh my goodness, I don't want my child to be disobedient and make mistakes. That, when the rules are loving and the application is meaningful, in fact, whenever a parent disciplines a child, it's good to ask, will this help my child be a better decision maker in the future? Every time, will this help my child? And but don't have any guilt. Like Pastor Edwards said, because we all make mistakes and we're just doing the best we can. Keep in mind, I want you to tell everybody you know, you're in the top 10% of parents and grandparents in the United States, because you're at the seminar, okay? Any other questions or comments? Okay, let's look at number 5. A healthy relationship builds trust, increases trust. A parent's number one goal is to build a strong parent-child relationship. And the stronger our relationship is with our Savior Jesus Christ, the more we want to obey the 10 Commandments. The more we want to follow biblical absolutes of right and wrong. And the more we want to live a godly life. The more, or the stronger your relationship is with your child, the more your child will want to listen to your ideas and your suggestions so that they can manage their own life. Trust and mutual respect are what influence a child's heart. And without a strong relationship, it's very difficult for a child to trust and respect a parent. When your child trusts and respects you, what they believe is you always have their best interest at heart. You always have their best interest at heart when they have you got a strong parent-child relationship, because they trust and respect you. There are 3 R's that we need to keep in mind. In fact, building a strong relationship with your child is so important. I devoted one entire chapter, chapter 2, on how you can go about building that strong parent-child relationship. But there are 3 R's that we need to keep in mind. 3 that are positive, 3 R's in the wrong direction that are negative. A positive relationship, the first R, plus a healthy, loving application of the rules, the second R, equals a responsible decision-making child. Now, the negative side of that, rules minus a positive relationship will equal a rebellious child. And a lot of Christian parents mistakenly, unintentionally believe that if I have great rules, and I've seen a lot of Christians in my practice that think, hey, we've got great rules, that relationship doesn't have to be that strong. And rules minus that strong relationship will equal a rebellious child. Okay? So it all begins there, and next week we're going to look at how you can build that strong relationship with your child. So then look at simple, successful habit number 6. Regular routines instill organization. Have routines as an individual, as a Christian woman or a Christian man. Have an organized schedule yourself. Be structured in your home. It amazes me that how often when I see a struggling family for the first time, routines are not present in their home. Structure is not present in their home. And I'm not being critical of them, they're coming for help, and that's the first thing I check out. What are some basic routines? Well, mealtime routines, morning routines, bedtime routines, prayer routines. I'm doing a virtual with a family in northern Indiana on Thursday, and things are going much better now. But when I first saw them, and one of the first questions I asked the first session when I help a struggling family, struggling parents, or struggling kids is, do you eat meals together? And I would say 95% of the time, the answer is no. And it doesn't make any difference if it's sandwiches and chips. It doesn't have to be a hot dinner. But kids and parents need to be seated at the table, looking into each other's eyes, and mealtime should not be problem talk. Okay? No problem talk. It's all positive. Parents can give an appreciation vitamin to their kids and compliment their kids at the table for something. But the family I'm helping on Thursday, when I asked them, they said everybody gets their food and goes to a different room. And they've got quite a few kids, and so they haven't been having meals together. Talk about a bedtime routine. Well, mom is an executive housewife, does not work outside the home, and she does not have a structured sleep schedule. And sometimes she's staying up late with her kids, and they're not getting enough sleep, and then they're tired the next day at school. And often, a lack of a structured sleep schedule can also lead to anxiety and depression. When I help individuals struggling with anxiety and depression, one of the first things I check out is their sleep schedule. You know, what time are they going to bed? And so those routines make a big difference in a family's life, and in your children's life, and your grandchildren's life. You know, we talk about prayer routines. Well, when families are eating at the table, it gives the family a chance to say a prayer to ask God to bless the food before the meal and to have a prayer after the meal. Okay? So routines instill organization, and that diminishes the chaos that can happen on the inside of a child when a child knows, here's the routines in the morning, here's the routines at night when we go to bed, and I have, of course, that explained in my Christian parenting book. Then 7, responsibilities establish confidence. Assign household tasks to your children and even your grandchildren. And they may be simple household tasks. You know, a 3-year-old can pick up their toy and put that toy in the toy box. You know, and a parent or a grandparent can say, when you pick up that toy and place it in the toy box, then you may get another toy. Okay? And so responsibilities teach self-discipline. Responsibilities teach self-confidence. It's kind of interesting. A psychological study found that when individuals complete tasks, that gives them energy. Simple things like, rather than putting dishes in the sink, putting them in the dishwasher. We haven't had to shovel too much snow this year, but if you're shoveling the snow and you get interrupted and you only finish half the sidewalk, to leave that unfinished will deplete your energy. To go back outside and complete that task gives you energy. And so completing tasks gives your child or your grandchild a lot of energy. I saw a young man years ago who was, I think, 16, 17 at the time. He had very low self-worth, very little self-confidence. And I mentioned to mom and dad, or I asked them, how often are you giving your teenager tasks? And they said, well, we really don't. They were kind of perfectionistic people. They said, because he doesn't do it to our liking. And I said, well, what do you mean? I said, Dad, what about having your son mow the grass? And Dad said, well, he's going to miss a few strips of grass. And so I don't want him to do it. And I said, Dad, what do those strips of grass matter in 10 years? And he said, you're right. They don't. I said, let your son start mowing the grass and build his self-confidence and his self-worth that he's helping the family function in a good manner. So establish routines, responsibilities, excuse me. Then number 8, rules increase freedom. You know, there are certainly the 10 Commandments. Sadly, in 1980, the Supreme Court took the 10 Commandments out of schools, public schools. Jesus summed up the rules with love God with all your heart, soul, and mind, love your neighbor as yourself. But kids need rules, and rules are a sign of care and love by a parent for their child. And so when a parent has a good relationship with their child, kids appreciate those limits. Kids appreciate those rules. And so important in helping a child make responsible decisions to have rules. Then, number 9, and I'm going to stop here and see if you have any comments. The amazing A's are absolutely essential. Acceptance, affection, attention, and appreciation. Acceptance is loving your child or your grandchild unconditionally. No matter if they make mistakes, when they sin, if they get in trouble with the law, kids need unconditional love. What does God give all of us in our Savior Jesus Christ? Unconditional love. The Bible says nothing can separate us from God's love in Jesus Christ. And your children and your grandchildren need to believe that nothing can separate them from your love, that you're going to always accept them. Doesn't mean you approve when they make mistakes, but you're always going to accept them unconditionally. And make sure when you compliment your child, you never use the word but. But is an eraser. Whatever goes before the word but is erased. So you can say to your child, you did a wonderful job on that homework assignment, but. And what happened? Got erased. So you need to actually, in your home, I know we have some professors in here and teachers or former profs, but I'm going to say we need to have poor grammar and have run-on sentences. You need to and. You did a wonderful job on that homework assignment, and you can do it this way next time and to learn a little more, okay? So have run-on sentences with your acceptance. Then affection. And like I said, this time is kind of laying a foundation, or this seminar tonight. The next Zoom meeting is going to really get to specific words, actions, and common sense wisdom that are the basics, and we can kind of get to. But in terms of affection, kids need verbal and physical expressions of love. And chapter 2 is all about that, and I have specifics that have made a huge, significant positive difference in the lives of kids, giving them confidence and self-worth on what you can do there as a mom and dad and a grandparent. Then attention. Attention is focused time looking into your child's eyes. Your eyes are windows to your hearts. Your child's eyes are windows to their heart. Think about it this way. You want to make a heart connection with your child. Look into their eyes. Daily dialogue. Try to say, I'm going to get 5-10 minutes just looking into my child's heart through their eyes and make that heart connection. A lot of times parents will say to me, Dr. Schroeder, I'm in the home, from whatever, 6 to 9 till our kids go to bed. Well, being physically present is not making a heart connection. A heart connection happens through the eyes, and probably one of the best synonyms for love is time. Time, looking into each other's eyes. And the other thing is, if you're married, I always suggest to couples in my Christian marriage book that they need to spend 10 minutes a day looking into each other's eyes. And after about the second or third year of marriage, I would say 99% of couples stop doing that. They are glancing each other's eyes as they're cooking dinner, cleaning up the dishes, whatever. But to just sit down, put the cell phone in the other room, and make a heart connection, look into each other's eyes, it just doesn't happen. And yet that is essential for my wife and I. We started dating 50 years ago, so we've known each other, but we're no different than any other couple. We look into each other's eyes for at least 10 minutes to make that heart connection every day. And couples need to do that, and parents and grandparents need to do that with their kids. And then appreciation, and we're going to talk about that more next week. Thank you is important, and that's kind of gratitude. It's wonderful for you to say to your child, thank you for saying this, thank you for doing that. But what is even more powerful is I appreciate. Appreciate is praise and lifts your child up. See how this feels. I can say to all of you, and certainly you're in the top 10% of parents and grandparents in the country, but thank you for being at the seminar tonight. And that feels good. But when I say to all of you, I appreciate you being at this seminar tonight, that just kind of lifts you up even more. And so it's important, I suggest to parents, to give your child an appreciation vitamin every day. Absolutely essential. Now, let me stop there. We still have 10, 11, 12, and 13, but do you have any comments or questions on what we just went over there? Yes, ma'am, Carol.
One of our grandchildren, second oldest, taught me a big lesson about that appreciation thing when she was, I think, 4 or 5. I was picking her up from something, was going to spend some time with me, and prior to getting into the car, something happened among the children that was real iffy. It could have gone kind of bad. She handled it nicely. I don't remember the circumstances, but as we drove home, I was busy at the wheel, and I said, Rachel, I'm proud of you. And she just looked at me and she said, I don't know what that means. And I had to spell out exactly, and she said, grown-ups say that all the time, and I don't usually know what it means. You just said it, if we don't get really specific, we really haven't connected and helped with the obedience and the repetition of that wonderful thing that we can be proud of.
Well, and I'm glad you said that, because I forgot to mention, if you have a child that's maybe 6 and under, you probably need to use the word like. Because they might not know the definition of the word appreciate, and like you said, the granddaughter may not know what the proud means. And we'll talk about that too. I'll just mention it now. If there's one question, I've helped numerous teenagers, but if there's one question I hear over and over from teenagers, is Dr. Schroeder, are my mom and dad proud of me? Parents do not tell their kids nearly enough how proud they are of them. And I think it's best often to do that in the car when a child's not achieving anything or accomplishing anything. A lot of parents will say, I'm proud of you that you got a good grade on that test, or I'm proud of you for working hard at that sports activity, or going to choir, or whatever. But it's good just to say, I'm proud of you because you're my child. I'm proud of you because you're just my grandchild. Parents do not use the P word enough, but like Carol said too, we need to make sure that kids understand definitions. And so if you have a youngster who's younger, you may need to say, I like this about you, I like that about you. Okay? Any other comments about any of this that we just talked about? Or questions? Yes, ma'am.
One comment that, something that we have tried to avoid when I where I work is to like give, not to give unworthy praise or, you know, because kids, especially as they are entering in middle school and high school, they can sense.
Yes, ma'am.
That doesn't.
No, yeah, I totally agree. And everything I'm talking about tonight, I go in more detail in my Christian parenting book. And I say, do not be insincere, do not be using flattery. Yeah, kids can see through that. You need to be genuine and authentic with the I appreciate vitamin. You know, you absolutely need to be authentic. Yeah, good point. I appreciate you sharing that. And there's a lot of things we could talk about, and there is more detail in my Christian parenting book. So, yes, ma'am.
This is a question about one of the other sections. Do you go into like affection preferences for kids?
Well, I
Like
talk.
language type. Like,
Well, I will next week.
Okay, that's
Okay,
what
make sure you bring up that question. Okay. Yeah, and because some kids are a little hesitant with affection, and yet, you know, you can catch them when they're playing video games, watching TV to give them quick touches. I'll just mention that now. Yeah, but we'll talk about that next week in the Zoom meeting. Or next month, forgive me, next month. Any other comments or questions? I'm going to just hit some of the high points here to get through 10, 11, 12, 13. So we can stop at 7:30. But I'm going to hang around as long as you want to ask me questions. So if you have questions, I'll be here. Don't hesitate to come up and ask me. 3 qualities to strengthen within your child. Morals based on the Bible. Sadly today, morals have become very, very blurry. We all know that. And the boundaries with sin are pushing the envelope wider and wider and wider apart. And what happens today, people basically tell God this, here's my feelings, God. Now you need to fit inside my feelings. It's not, God, here's the Bible and here's the absolutes and I need to fit inside the Bible. No, you need to, God, fit inside my feelings. And so Deuteronomy chapter 6 says, these commandments that I give you today are to be upon your hearts, impress them on your children. And so give your kids biblical values to help them know the absolutes of right and wrong. Kind of an interesting study was done probably over 30 years ago, and it was University of Chicago students. I think there were like 5,000 students who were surveyed. And they tried to determine where did they get their values. Now, Pastor Edwards, I'm not saying they shouldn't keep going to church. But what was interesting is they didn't get their values at church. They didn't get their values in school, which we may say, thank goodness today, depending. They got their values at mealtime. At mealtime. And that's why mealtime, you know, parents talking about different things, even, and it was even unbelievers, you know, the unbelieving parents conveyed their values at mealtime. Then character. Character are the external actions that are associated with internal biblical morals, internal biblical beliefs. And so when your child demonstrates words and actions that are tied to the Bible, that is indicating their character. And your goal is to help your child be a high integrity person. Integrity would be words and actions matching up. Okay? You want your words and actions to match. So you can say to your child, do ABC, but do your actions match ABC? Okay? It goes back to what I said earlier. Example is not the best teacher. Example is the only teacher. And then another key quality, probably one of the most important qualities I think a youngster can possess, and I could have listed a bunch of qualities in that simple, successful lesson, but I only picked 3. But determination is just absolutely necessary. Adversity happens to everyone. Adversity happens to your child. You ask anybody who's successful, have you had adversity? And they're going to say, yes, many adversity events in my life. A persistent spirit causes your child to never give up. You know, if they don't get a good grade on a test, they work harder and come back next time. Kind of interesting, after World War II, and maybe you've heard this story, Winston Churchill was asked to give a commencement address on his philosophy of life. And reporters from all over the world came to listen to this great statesman, Winston Churchill, who helped win World War II. And he went to the microphone and stood up, and basically, I'm kind of summing it up, but it was very, very, very brief, said, my philosophy of life is never, 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 never give up. And he went and sat down. That was it. And so you want that kind of attitude for your child, because attitude is everything. Successful people are just ordinary people with an extra amount of determination. And that's what you want for your child, because they're going to have setbacks. And when they have setbacks, that's your time as a mom, a dad, a grandparent to say, I believe in you. I've got confidence in you. I'm proud of you, how you always try so hard. This is just a new beginning. This is just a fresh start. You know, this is just a learning opportunity. Reframe it so that your child and your grandchild develops that never give up spirit. Then, 11, mutual respect. Matthew chapter 7, verse 12 says, treat others the same way you want them to treat you. Absolutely essential. And so many parents say, because I'm older, I don't have to respect my kids. And yet, without respect and trust, kids will not listen to mom and dad. One of the best ways to demonstrate respect is to speak when something's very, very important, you're conveying it to your child, just above a whisper. Just speak just above a whisper. Lower your voice so your child knows you love them and your child knows you respect them. And respect is earned. Respect is earned by a child. And I think parents often forget that. I had a pastor when I was in Fort Wayne, and he's no longer in Fort Wayne, this was years and years ago, who did not have the respect of his kids. And I remember him saying to me, Randy, you're a pastor and you're a professor at the seminary. Do you know the fourth commandment, honor your father and mother? And I said, yes, Pastor, I know the fourth commandment. I said, I think it also says in Ephesians, fathers, mothers, don't exasperate your kids. And he got kind of quiet. He said, you're right. And I said, Pastor, I said, your kids are to honor you. But they may not respect you because you earned their respect. And he turned it around as a dad, and his kids went from being rebellious to responsible. Not overnight, but they knew when their dad gained their respect, that he had their best interest at heart, and it made a huge difference. And keep in mind, now I'm going to skip over that. Then, look at number 12. We run out of time here. Obedience leads to responsible decisions. Again, your goal as a mom, dad, as a grandparent, I'm a grandparent now, we have 7 grandkids, is to help our children and grandchildren be good decision makers. And children learn through choices. God doesn't control our choices. We're going to do whatever we want. Hopefully, the closer our walk is with Jesus, the more we'll be in line with the Bible. And so seek obedience in your child. And keep in mind, after the age of 12, when your eyes aren't on your child all the time, they're going to be making major decisions on their own. You know, when they're away from you, they're going to be deciding when a youngster says, hey, do you want to vape with me, or do you want to smoke a cigarette with me, or do you want to do some recreational drugs with me? Do you want to drink some alcohol, sexual contact? Who's going to make that decision? They are, because you're not there. So kids that learn, parents who give kids choices growing up to the age of 12, kids learn good decision making up to the age of 12, they're much more likely to make good decisions than after the age of 12. One of the things I suggest is by the time a child's a senior in high school, they need to be making all their own decisions under parental guidance. Because after high school, what happens? They either go to college or they get a job, get an apartment. Now, when they go away to college or they get a job, get an apartment, who determines their curfew? They do. Who determines if they go to class or if they go to their job? They do. Now, I'm not saying, but I'm just saying by the time a child's a senior in high school that last Friday night, if a 12th grader came home and said, Mom, Dad, I'm staying out till 4 o'clock this morning, that Mom and Dad should say, God bless you, have fun. No. We don't want that, okay? But for the most part, a senior in high school, because parents need to be like a mother bird and just open their arms so that the child eventually flies away on their own and effectively manages their life from the ages of 18 to 100. That is the goal. And then avoiding the parenting extremes. We're going to run out of time here. There's 3. And I've talked a lot about not controlling, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time there, but controlling parents are all limits with very little freedom, okay? Overprotective parents, and by the way, I often say the more loving a Christian parent is, the more they desire to be controlling. Loving Christian parents have their children's best interests at heart, and so they just want to control. And that's not going to help kids be good decision makers. Another extreme that loving Christian parents struggle with is being overprotective and holding a child too tightly and protecting a child from the bumps and bruises of life. A true statement is, what doesn't seriously harm my child will make my child stronger. Overprotection causes the child to be dependent. Overprotection meets a parent's needs, not the child's needs. Overprotection conveys the thought to the child, you can't handle the world without me. You can't handle your problems without me. And at 18, what is your child going to need to do? Handle the world and handle problems without you as a mom and a dad. Now, it doesn't mean they can't come to you and ask questions.
Or they'll live in your basement.
Or they live, yeah. A lot of adult kids are moving home again. But overprotection causes a child to feel that I'm incompetent. I'm inadequate. I just can't do it. So I better keep going back to mom and dad. I see it so often when a loving Christian parent, a child falls down, and the parents just run over and hold the child too tightly. And I suggest to parents in my counseling practice, not that a parent shouldn't care, but if a child stumbles, see if the child, and they're crying, see if they can get up and walk over to the parent and get a hug. If they can, let them do that, because they need to handle bumps and bruises and scrapes on their own, okay? Now, the most important part of this evening is not what you learned. The most important part of this evening is not what you learn, but what you do daily as a parent with this common sense parenting wisdom. And so I'm going to ask you to make a commitment action. And out of whatever we talked about tonight, will you please, and if you don't do it now, do it when you get home, write down, keep in the present, daily I am. Daily I am giving an appreciation vitamin. Daily I am saying I'm proud of you. Just pick one action commitment, just one, out of the entire evening, because it's not what you learned tonight that's important. What's important is what you do as a mom, a dad, as a grandparent when you leave here this evening. And you do that with daily I am. Just pick one of everything that we talked about. Now, if I could, Dave and Carol, go over just a little and see if there's any questions or comments on anything. You have a question? No. No other questions or comments? Well, again, I appreciate Dave and Carol, Pastor Edwards, Pastor Beck, the children's ministry team, all the volunteers, for hosting this seminar. I appreciate, again, you being here this evening, and I'm so proud of you. I'm going to give you the P word. Proud of you that you're part of the 10% top parents in the United States, and grandparents. Got grandparents here as well. Again, God's richest blessings on your life, and God's richest blessings on your relationships, and I'll look forward to being with you in March.
Let's show our appreciation. Be sure that we understand what the piece of paper, the half sheet is all about. We've made numerous references to next month. There are 3 next month events. A Zoom, and we've chosen different nights of the week. This being a Monday, we wanted to move it through the week because we know every family has some standing commitments and we didn't want to exclude anybody all the way through. So next time in March, on Tuesday, March 7th, we will have a Zoom session at bedtime. Those Zoom sessions all are what we assume as a ministry team would be children's bedtime kind of settling down in your house so that you can get the kids pretty much off to bed. Maybe you'll do tag team with your spouse and do it on the phone as you're kind of checking on the last drink of water or whatever it takes. But tune in at 8:30, and what we will do is using your emails that you pre-registered or registered this evening, we will send a link to you for that Zoom session. That topic is listed here, but we will reiterate that. So if you picked up a copy of the book, or if you still need to do that, you can read the chapters that 2 and 3 in that case. So we'll be talking about habits that build a strong relationship and habits that help apply the rules. And that session, if you have any questions, if I'm correct, they can even ask questions on any other topic, right?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Send a question ahead if you have any questions. Something may have been happening and at home in the next several weeks, and you say, gee, I'd really like to check to see what our expert has to say about this particular topic. Whatever it is, it's going to apply to other people as well. We can be certain of that. And so if you have questions sent in ahead, he will have that on the list. Otherwise, we will take the topic as presented here. Again, then in April, that month it'll be on a Wednesday evening, again at 8:30. We'll send you a reminder, we'll send you a Zoom link, and we'll get together at 8:30. We'll have a chat. Questions that you send in ahead, or Dr. Randy will just give us some good encouragement on habits from a couple of next chapters. And in May, it'll be a Thursday evening, again at 8:30.
Remind them that if you have friends that weren't here tonight, and they can still join in those Zoom meetings. You just have to alert them to it and either send the email address to us, or you just remind them as a friend that you can join in.
And Paul Bruner has recorded this session, so we will put that out. Janet will tell us how we do that.
Yeah. I've already told a few people, because you had said before that it would be on Facebook. Is that correct? We don't have to, but that was my assumption. And then we can also put it on the website.
Yes, and
So, but I'll do whatever is best.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I think that would be terrific. Yeah, to help, that's my goal, is to help parents be effective, to lead their kids to heaven, and guide them to be responsible, godly adults one day. The good thing is, since all of you are in the top 10% of parents in America, you know, when you put your kids to bed, say prayers with them, and say goodnight, I love you no matter what, they'll just go right to sleep. You'll be good to go at 8:30, you know. Your kids are just great decision makers already. You know, they just go right to sleep.
even those middle schoolers, you just tell them it's time for the Zoom meeting.
I have a question over here for
Homework's
Megan.
done, yeah.
Okay.
Will the Zoom meetings also be recorded?
That's fine with me.
that's easy,
I mean,
yeah.
if, I don't, Pastor Edwards, do you have any problem with that, or? No?
He's not the technical. Can we do it?
Paul, yeah.
It's easy to do, yeah.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
easy.
now, if you want those to be recorded, that'd be terrific, yeah. Yep.
All right, we just don't want to do something that isn't right for you.
Yeah, no, that'd be great, yeah.
No.
And I think that if anyone would not want to be on a Zoom thing, you could just hide your,
Oh, you don't have to, yeah, they don't have to choose video. They're on camera on, that's true.
Yeah, if you can make a Zoom meeting and you can't make another one, no big deal. You know, there's 3 left, so whatever you can make, you know, that'd be great. Yeah.
But if you're gonna be able to make it, do say hi, I mean, kind of, you know, it's a note, have an audience out there, people that are listening. So,
Well, I'll be here if you have any individual questions, that would be fine.
thanks, Mark, thanks so very, very much. Appreciate it.
Just a reminder too,